Hello, I'm Roger Mudd. Welcome to the History Channel. In February 1994, 400 journalists gathered to watch two ice skaters go through their practice routines. They reported to the world about whether the two athletes looked at one another and whether they exchanged any words. Of course, these weren't just any skaters. They were Nancy Kerrigan, recovering from a brutal assault on her knee, and Tonya Harding, accused of plotting that assault. And it wasn't just any practice session. The two were in Lillehammer, Norway, competing for an Olympic gold medal. Our program is the story of Olympic figure skating and the athletes who took to the ice in search of gold medals. The program includes interviews with Dick Button, who revolutionized figure skating in the 1950s, Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean, who revolutionized ice dancing in the 1980s, and the two skaters who squared off in the Battle of the Bryans in 1988. All of them helped make skating one of the most popular events at the Olympic Games, even before the bizarre soap opera of Nancy and Tonya. Join us now as the History Channel presents the Olympic series, Road to Glory, Figure Skating.
Figure skating has become one of the most popular events in the Winter Olympics. It's a sport which requires thousands of hours of practice to perfect and whose very nature punishes the slightest mistake. Those skaters who have made their mark in the Olympic Games have captured the public imagination by sharing artistry, commitment, and drama on ice. But the road to glory is treacherous in the ice arena. The history of Olympic figure skating is as full of failure as it is of triumph. Skating is now a spectacle as well as a competition, but it began as a way to travel, then grew into a form of recreation when steel-bladed boots revolutionized the sport in the late 1800s. The origins of the first skate remain almost as ancient as ice itself. It was amid the track and field of London's Summer Olympics in 1908 that ice skating was first seen at the Games. Away from the usual Summer Olympic sports, ice skating was proving to be a particularly successful event. The crowds were drawn to Swedish world champion Ulrik Salchow, who won the gold and went on to become a major influence in the sport when he served as the forceful but not universally popular president of the International Skating Union. His name was immortalized in the Salchow, the dramatic jump he made his own. Skating developed rapidly through a succession of innovators. Sweden's Gillis Grafström became Olympic champion 3 times running with a graceful and balletic style. In 1932, and at the age of 38, time was to run out for Grafström. He was ousted at the Lake Placid Olympics by a 22-year-old Austrian skater by the name of Karl Schaefer. In this rare footage, Schaefer trains with the 11-year-old Japanese prodigy Inada, who became a popular figure at the Games. After Schaefer's 1932 victory, he went on to win again 4 years later and became 7 times world champion. His combination of accuracy in the compulsory figures and fluency in free dance proved unassailable for many years. From these early skaters have come decades of inspiration, but the innovations were just beginning. Men's figure skating has pushed the boundaries of the sport to new limits. At the Albertville Olympics in 1992, Peter Barna became the first skater to perform a quadruple salchow in competition. But some innovations have not been so warmly welcomed. When Terry Kubica of the USA performed his infamous backflip at the Games in 1976, the move was instantly banned as being too dangerous. For many, it was this man who took the sport into the modern era, even if it did come stubbornly.
Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come here, come here.
His name is Dick Button, and he represents the bridge between the dance of the early skaters and the athleticism of current figure skating.
Come on, girl.
Button's style was unlike anything anyone had seen. Training in the United States, he had not been under the control of a coach, so had interpreted the sport as he saw fit. He combined traditional moves with aggressive jumps and new interpretations of spins previously only practiced by women. The Harvard student made his first appearance as a fresh-faced 18-year-old at the 1948 Games in St. Moritz. He became an instant attraction and swept to victory against his more traditional European opponents. The secret of Button's success was the way he pushed the limits of the sport and risked failure. Many of the moves he brought to the Olympics he had only recently perfected in practice. The innovations came thick and fast.
I was the first to do a double axel, which is a novice move today. I was the first to do, boys didn't do camel spins. Those were the province of the girls. I changed the arms, made them simplified, and it became a standard move for everybody. All of those things were new and brought into the sport. Flying sit spins, jump sit spins, moves, combinations of moves, triple jumps, etc. Now, of course, everybody does everything. I never knew the time that I didn't want to be a figure skater. Not a speed skater, not a hockey player, a figure skater. I think from the time I was 5 on, I don't know where the influence came from. I don't know what inspired me. I don't even know where I saw it. I just remembered that I always wanted to be a figure skater. And I liked other sports, but nothing compared to figure skating.
Every time Button skated onto the ice, both judges and audience were sure to witness something new. Twice Olympic and 5 times world champion, Dick Button left a legacy of innovation, style, and grace unmatched by any male skater since. But if his achievements were a milestone, there was a woman who preceded him whose influence was even more profound. Sonja Henie of Norway is the most famous figure skater of all time. She began skating at the age of 5, and within a few years, she was winning trophies all over Norway. Relentless training won Henie a place on the Norwegian Olympic team in 1924 at the age of 11. And although she finished last, it was the start of a meteoric rise to fame. The last time Sonja Henie was ever defeated in competition was in 1926. By the 1936 Winter Games in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Henie was twice Olympic champion and aiming to become the only woman to win the title 3 times running. The popularity of women's ice skating had rocketed as imitation Sonjas popped up all over the world. Henie was about to face her stiffest opposition ever. The compulsory figures were crucial to Henie, but she only took a lead of 3.6s. When she heard the score, she tore the offending sheet from the announcement board and ripped it to shreds. But her rare meeting with Ulrich Salchow shows her in higher spirits. It was Britain's Cecilia College who stood between Henie and a 3rd consecutive gold. The 15-year-old skated in the style of her older competitor, but the pressure was getting to her, and she touched the ice. Nevertheless, College impressed the judges, and the pressure was back on her Norwegian rival. Extra police had to be brought in to control the crowds. Henie had announced that she would retire after the forthcoming World Championships, so the event became even more significant. Henie's performance assured her of a 3rd successive gold medal. Later, she won her 10th straight World Championship, equaling Ulrich Salchow's record. Sonja Henie went on to become a Hollywood movie star. Her achievements remain unsurpassed. But recently, a German skater came close to sharing her mantle. Her name, Katarina Witt. In 1984, the East German diva won the gold for the first time, in the process attracting millions of fans and 35,000 love letters. But if her personality and beauty won hearts, it was the years of state-sponsored training that won her trophies. These days, the special facilities and perks offered to athletes during communist rule provoked some hostile reactions in the former East Germany. Nevertheless, success in sport has always won political points, so the cash poured into athletes like Witt was considered money well spent. And for figure skating fans, the years of investment created one of the most attractive skaters of recent times. The little girl would soon become known as Katarina the Great. The only skater to have beaten Witt in 5 years was also her chief competitor in the 1988 Calgary Games, arch rival Debi Thomas, who had won the 1986 World Championship. The American skater held a slight lead over Witt and knew the gold was in her sights. The two skaters were performing to the same music, but their styles couldn't have been more different.
I think that Debi's more athletic than me, but I believe that we managed to combine the artistic part of the program and the jumps and to work out the theme a little better.
It was a perfect contest. And for the East German who grew up dreaming of becoming an Olympic champion, a chance to win a 2nd gold and achieve skating immortality. As Witt skated to Bizet's Carmen, her rivals awaited their chance to dethrone the queen. Witt's performance was artistically flawless, but she took no chances with technical adventure. Still, Thomas would have to. Performance represents the cruel nature of the sport. When the skates flow and the jumps fly, the spectacle is breathtaking. But when it goes wrong, everyone is still watching. Witt had done it. The first repeat winner in singles figure skating since Sonja Henie. Thomas was beaten to the silver by Canada's Elizabeth Manley.
I didn't want to win anyway.
The significance of the occasion was not lost on Witt. This was set to be her last Olympics as she planned to turn professional. The crowd waved goodbye to the champion. But little were they to know that they hadn't seen the last of this Olympic hero. Katarina Witt would be back. Of all the figure skating disciplines, the pairs event is one of the most exacting. Two skaters, often both good enough to compete individually, must perform every move in perfect harmony. The event started life as an extension of ballroom dancing and found popularity among the European upper classes in the late 1800s. But it was a couple from the 1930s who took pair skating into new territory. At the 1936 Games in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, a 30-year-old German architect by the name of Ernst Bayer and his 15-year-old protege, Maxi Herber, brought the idea of shadow skating to the sport, in which both skaters perform the same moves, often without touching. Their performance won them gold for Germany, but no one country dominated the sport. Then in 1964, a new Soviet pair stepped on the ice.
Ludmila, Oleg, Protopopov, UdSSR.
In Innsbruck, the crowd was about to witness something much faster, more dramatic and passionate than ever before. Belousova and Protopopov placed first. A new era had begun. The Soviets had arrived. Belousova and Protopopov continued their success at the next Olympics. The husband and wife team climaxed their amateur career with an elegant display that earned them a second Olympic championship. After their victory, Protopopov spoke to the press. "Art cannot be measured in points," he said. "We skate from the heart. To us, it is spiritual beauty that matters. We try to show the love between a man and a woman." Japan, 1972, Sapporo becomes Asia's first host of the Winter Olympics. And in pairs figure skating, a 22-year-old Soviet woman by the name of Irina Rodnina was preparing to take over. Paired with 21-year-old Alexei Ulanov, the couple had developed a new style, full of dazzling and complex leaps and stunts. But their personal life was even more complex. Ulanov had become romantically involved with Ludmila Smirnova of the Soviet #2 couple. The harmonious interaction within the pairings was severely disrupted, and even though Rodnina and Ulanov won gold, Rodnina left the ice in tears. In Innsbruck, 4 years later, Rodnina is back. After a nationwide search in the Soviet Union, Rodnina had found a new partner and, as it turned out, a husband. His name was Alexander Zaitsev. The Soviet pairing dominated the ice in the 1970s, but there was still one record to match. Rodnina would win 10 world championships and had already been twice Olympic champion. To equal Sonja Henie's tally, Rodnina would have to claim one more Olympic gold. Which she did at Lake Placid in 1980. But the strain was telling in her body language. She let her arm fall at the end of her final Olympic routine. Nevertheless, her third gold confirmed Rodnina's place in Olympic history. Ice dance is now one of the most popular events in figure skating. Ice dance differs from the pairs event with a greater concentration on the couples skating together and rules governing the lifting of partners. Through a succession of fascinating couples, the event has captured the public imagination with its delicate combination of skills.
It is technique and artistry in one. That's dance. If you leave out one of the elements, there's nothing left.
Nowhere were these elements clearer than in the 1980 Games at Lake Placid. Ice dance had made its first appearance at the Olympics in 1976, but 4 years later, the sport was already embroiled in controversy. The popular Hungarian pairing of Ragozzi and Saleh, the current world champions, proved firm crowd favorites with their lively, artistic, and upbeat style. But there were accusations of favoritism from the judges when the Soviet couple of Linichuk and Karponosov won gold with a more staid, technical, and traditional program. If there was a squall in Lake Placid in 1980, there was about to be a storm in Sarajevo 4 years later. A young British couple by the names of Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean had startled the skating world with their innovative and passionate technique. Now they were coming to Yugoslavia to unveil their routine at the Olympics.
The Bolero piece is very sort of sensual piece of music anyway, and I think the fact that that was our final year of competing, that piece was shown more than any of the others, and the sort of romance of the whole thing, I think, caught everyone up in it.
The reaction to Torvill and Dean's performance was electrifying. No one had experienced this kind of passion on ice before, this technical supremacy. The crowd was ecstatic, and the judges had their own way of rewarding brilliance.
The Olympics was the pinnacle of our career, and it was it was a happy ending, you might say. You go off into the sunset. We really hadn't planned that much after winning the gold medal at Olympics. You know, we were just getting to that point. And so we didn't know what was beyond that. And in one way, it was a great high, and it was sort of euphoric and special and wonderful. But the other side of it, there was this void of not knowing what, it was the end of what we've known.
Torvill and Dean faced a professional future, no thoughts of further Olympic glory, it seemed. Christopher Dean soon began coaching a promising French-Canadian brother and sister pairing, Paul and Isabelle Duchesnay. Not surprisingly, his innovative style inspired his protégés. The Duchesnays, like Torvill and Dean before them, became crowd favorites, but the judges were split in their opinion. This routine, called the Jungle, only gained them an 8th place in Calgary. But for Isabelle, the reasons are clear.
That routine made a name for us, but I don't like watching it on video, and when I watch it, I think it seems pretty junior.
But Dean persisted with the Duchesnays, and soon it was paying dividends. The press loved them, and they returned to the Albertville Olympics in 1992 with a new routine. The program was decidedly more orthodox than the Jungle in an attempt to woo the judges. Before, the Duchesnays had stood out from their Russian competitors, but now they thought they had cracked the formula. But they hadn't planned on the Russians changing their style. European champions Marina Klimova and Sergei Ponomarenko performed a routine of passionate sensuality. For Klimova and Ponomarenko. Silver for the French Canadians, who had been beaten at their own game. In men's figure skating, Dick Button left an American legacy. In the 50s, his compatriots dominated the sport, with gold going to Hayes Allen Jenkins in 1956. Then to brother David Jenkins in 1960. The 1970s saw a more balletic style as Britain's John Curry won gold. Britain continued its success when Robin Cousins was named Olympic champion in 1980. The 1980s saw a return of the athlete to skating when Scott Hamilton spun to prominence at the Sarajevo Games. It was at the 1988 Calgary Games that the men's competition gripped the public imagination like never before. Canada's Brian Orser led his team with the expectation that he would win gold for his country. It was an expectation grounded in reality, as Orser had beaten his American rival, Brian Boitano, in 7 out of 10 international competitions. But by 1988, they were so evenly matched that the contest was too close to call. The hungry media dubbed the clash the Battle of the Bryans. Not much of a title, but it was to be a thrilling encounter. Orser had often skated badly in the compulsory figures, but Calgary saw him carve out his most accomplished performance. Compulsory figures were phased out in 1992, but in Calgary they were crucial. At this early stage, Orser took a lead over Boitano, but despite the intensity of their rivalry, the two skaters shared a deep respect and friendship for one another.
The friendship between Brian Boitano and myself is very real. And we know each other well enough that even at that intense time, as we're going through our paces, I can just tell by the look in his eye whether he wants me to back off or whether we can talk or whether we can joke around. He's a good sport and I'm a good sport, and if he needs his space, I'll give it to him. But there's times when we just need to lighten up a little bit.
Brian Boitano skated to the score from the film Napoleon. As he began, he knew that the first minute was crucial.
In the middle of a spin, a 10-second spin, and I'm thinking, God, you're really skating well. This is all you ever dreamed of, And I kept saying, well, concentrate on the one coming up, concentrate on the one coming up. I felt like I was being lifted off the ice and set back down, and it was just the most amazing feeling, like the ice was exploding under my toes. And I got into the slow part, and I knew that the real key would be the second triple axel that came at the beginning of the slow part.
In figure skating, it is rare for a champion to perform at his best in major competitions because of the enormous pressure involved. But Boitano had just broken the rule. It had been the performance of a lifetime. Nevertheless, Boitano's near perfection still left room for Orser to salvage the gold. But he couldn't afford a single mistake.
I'm so happy. The one hitch that I did have was on the triple flip, maybe a minute into the program. Although it was a very minor error, and it wasn't one that was too obvious and didn't really distract or disrupt the program very much. So when that happened, I just carried on with the program and kept going because it wasn't a major error.
Orser had skated a great program, artistically superior to Boitano's, but it contained the one error, and he had also downgraded a jump towards the end as fatigue set in. The result was too close to call. Then the marks were announced. Boitano had won the gold by the narrowest of margins. 4 judges voted for Orser, 3 for Boitano, and 2 scored at a tie. But Boitano's technical merit points were higher. And in figure skating, technical marks have the edge. The contest had been the most dramatic men's encounter in the history of the event.
At that moment, watching that flag go up and seeing Canadian and Russian on the other side of it, it made me, for that brief minute, feel like all of America.
In the women's event, the sport saw a huge growth after Sonja Henie. Canadian Barbara Ann Scott became a media darling after her victory in 1948. Britain's Jeanette Altweg won in 1952 with the American Tenley Albright second, a medal she would turn to gold in 1956. The gold went to Holland for the first time in 1960 when Sjoukje Dijkstra won. And in 1968 in Grenoble, Peggy Fleming captured many hearts with her graceful skating and the way her family had sacrificed everything in pursuit of gold. But although publicity surrounded all these women, it was nothing compared to what the sport faced in the future. Lillehammer, 1994. The Tonya Harding-Nancy Kerrigan scandal. Before the games, it was alleged that Harding had known of a vicious attack on her rival by a former bodyguard. The implication was that Harding had attempted to disable the opposition. The media loved the story, and television ratings soared to unprecedented levels in the United States. The story had the ingredients of the most bizarre fairy tale. Whenever the tale seemed to come to a thrilling climax, an unexpected twist was always just around the corner. The immense media scrutiny of Harding was getting to her. After the start of her routine, she complained that the lace on her skate had broken just before she began. Having examined the offending skate, the judges allowed Harding to perform again after the other competitors.
Last in this group. Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
So, just as all fairy tales need someone to boo, they also need a princess. Nancy Kerrigan couldn't have played the part better. An All-American with a sparkling smile and a glittering routine. Even better, she had survived the physical attack on her seemingly unaffected and skated like never before. The crowd loved her. The flowers rained down. She had outskated her American rival and was sure to win. Or was she? The stage was set for a third player. Her name was Oksana Baiul, and the Ukrainian orphan was to play the part of inspired outsider with gusto. The women's event had been a media circus, but the result was a triumph for the Olympic spirit. Baiul's balletic grace and athletic jumps won the hearts and minds of the judging panel and the gold medal. Kerrigan, regal to the end, smiled graciously as the Ukrainian was crowned Olympic champion. 46 years before the Lillehammer Games, Dick Button had won gold at the age of 18. In 1994, 20-year-old Russian Alexei Urmanov became the youngest competitor since the American to claim the title, with a breathtaking display of classical dance combined with brilliant athletic ability. The most startling figure skating Olympics in the history of the Games continued with the return of Torvill and Dean, hungry to regain the medal they had won 10 years previously. The number they performed to was Let's Face the Music and Dance, the assumption being that having faced the music, they would reap the rewards. But once again, the 1994 Olympics caused a surprise. Their routine was performed perfectly, but one move stood out. Dean's overhead lift was cited by many as an illegal move and might well have cost them the gold. The indignity of imperfection was a hard pill to swallow.
5-7. Thank you.
At the recent European Championships, Oksana, Grishuk, and Evgeni Platov were placed behind Torvill and Dean. But because of the row over the British couple's bending of the rules, the judges were leaning towards the spectacular but safer routine of the Russians by the time the Olympics came around. Their exuberant rock and roll proved to be a crowd pleaser, and the judges agreed. Torvill and Dean had to make do with bronze. In the pairs event, 1988 champions Gordieva and Grinkov returned. Gordieva was a featherlight 16-year-old back then, and comment was made that Grinkov's huge lifts were only possible because of her size. But 6 years later, the child had become a woman, and still, their routine was as powerful and artistic as ever. Of all the professional skaters returning to chase former glory, Gordieva and Grinkov were the only gold medalists to equal what they had earlier achieved. For the Russians. But in a tragic twist of fate, this couple would be parted soon after when Sergei Grinkov died of heart failure during training. Behind the beauty of an Olympic victory lie the hours of endless practice, failure, and frustration. For some, the pursuit ends with a place in the history books, an ice skating legend. But for all Olympic figure skating champions, there is one truth. The moment they take to the ice, something startling, uplifting, and mesmerizing happens. The road to glory may be plagued by failure, but for those who reach the very top, the sacrifice is worthwhile. They've become masters of the ice beneath their feet. Theirs is the glory.
The soap opera that began before the 1994 Olympics continued well after the Games. Nancy Kerrigan made millions endorsing such products as soup and sunglasses, and more millions from ice shows and television specials. In late 1995, she married the agent who arranged those deals. Tonya Harding, meanwhile, pleaded guilty to a cover-up. She was sentenced to probation and banned from skating. Tonya Harding also married in late 1995, but even at her wedding, she attracted controversy. One of the wedding guests who took photos of the ceremony claimed Harding tried to smash into his car, apparently because she had sold exclusive photo rights to a tabloid for $10,000. For the History Channel, I'm Roger Mudd. Thanks for watching.